Hello and welcome to the International Schools podcast. My name is Dan Taylor.
My name is John Micton. Join us twice a month at the International Schools podcast as we have conversations with international school leaders, educators, and entrepreneurs working and engaging in the world of international schools and education.
And finally, just to say a huge thank you to our sponsor, ASA for Education, for making this podcast happen. Now on to the episode. Hi, welcome to the podcast. Today, I'm delighted to have a returning guest, Daniela Silva. The last time we spoke to Daniela, she was in Peru, and she's now in Singapore, so halfway across the world. So, Daniela, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's always good to chat. So, I'll put a link to the last talk we had. You worked for school in international school in Peru, what I've visited, really beautiful place, and since to move to Singapore now. I want to talk a bit about your new role and working in Asia, and obviously during the pandemic, which has obviously changed things probably compared to what you normally be doing. And then I want to talk about Singapore because it's an interesting place for me. I'm actually thinking to move to Asia with my family. We're looking at a few places, and Singapore is obviously high up on most people's list country to live with kids. So yeah, first of all, the job. So why did you decide to move? Did you? And do you want to explain about why you decided to move and what your new role is? Like what type of thing you do? Because I know you're managing a group of schools technology, which is interesting to me.
Yeah, thank you again, Dan, for having me over. So the interest came because sometimes when you group at central offices, you have a bigger impact on teaching and learning. And this opportunity just knocked my door through LinkedIn, which is very interesting now. LinkedIn is a very powerful tool for recruiting.
Yeah,
And
we'll talk about this, yeah.
Exactly. And, the opportunity came up. It was a great experience for me professionally, but more importantly, it was better for my family. And we were really looking forward to some sort of change.
Yeah.
So this came out, and I joined at that moment. We were called Dulwich College International. We have schools in South Korea, China, and Singapore.
Yeah. And so, interesting because how so I want LinkedIn. That's a really interesting thing to talk about because I'm really active on LinkedIn now. I find it's a great way to network with people. I was pretty much only Twitter before, and now, first of all, Twitter started to annoy me just because of all the flame wars and just like stupidity. But I'm finding LinkedIn way more useful. You can actually have good conversations with people, good way to connect. You can see who somebody really is and where they're really working. And I've had opportunities from it. So I saw any tips you've got for people using LinkedIn. I think like me, you've got the premium version. I saw you've got the icon, the gold icon. Like, any tips? How do you use LinkedIn and how do you find it useful?
I think what's very useful in LinkedIn is that you can belong to certain communities where the conversations, the posts, the share outs are more focused to a specific topic, whether that's Google or any other type of topic. Twitter is good. You have a limit on the number of characters that you want to share, and then there's a lot of content dumped into you through Twitter. That's why most of the people start creating their list and their groups. I find LinkedIn more focused to professional learning, and you really see more depth in terms of new content, new pedagogies, or new frameworks.
Do you think it's more LinkedIn is more leadership and Twitter is more teachers?
Not necessarily.
That's my opinion, and yeah, it's good you disagree. I just there's teachers on there, but often when I look at them, they haven't obviously filled in the profile. They're not active. They've got a few people they're connected to, Whereas if you see someone in school leadership there, they always have the 500 plus, because the maximum it shows is 500. They've always got 500 plus. They're posting. I think some leadership people post on Twitter, so some don't. I don't know. It's just my opinion. It's interesting. You think it's kind of across the two.
Yeah, I would say like most teachers that I've seen or I've known or I'm connected through Twitter also have LinkedIn.
Yeah, true. But do you think they're as active on LinkedIn as they are on Twitter, or you think it just depends on the teacher?
I think it depends on the teacher, but just thinking about what you said, they're more active on Twitter. I guess it's more easy to just go straight to the point sometimes when you tweet. In LinkedIn, you have more space. You can attach more things. So it's more time to prepare for your post.
It's interesting because if I look, I quite often put the same posts on Twitter and LinkedIn, and I haven't put any effort into this. So I probably should think about it more, but I actually get way more people view the post on Twitter, like 10 times more. I mean, sometimes, I did a post the other day on Twitter and it had like 15,000 views, because Google Analytics can't retweet it. And LinkedIn is not many. It's very few views, but I get more connections. People contact me about it on LinkedIn, so it's small, but it seems like it's people take action. And I'm just interested because I'm kind of a new LinkedIn convert. I didn't really like it, and now I'm using it all the time. So interesting. And you, just to get back to what we're talking about, so you got the job through LinkedIn, is that right? Someone contacted you through LinkedIn, a recruiter.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Cool. And do you think that happens a lot? I mean, that's a good reason to have a good profile and stuff. Did you put like the open to work thing, or they just contacted you and said you were interested to move?
I had the open to work
okay.
On your profile picture, right?
Yeah, the green. Okay, so that's a good tip, I guess. People, if you're doing that, people know to contact you. And I think you can. I think you can make your profile. You can indicate you're looking for a job, so only recruiters see it. I don't know if you've seen that. You can put something so only recruitment agencies see this, saying nobody else does, which is that's quite cool.
And you can also select the regions where you want to be recruited.
Aha, that's cool.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Good. Yeah, so you got the job through recruiter. Do you think, is that the first time you've done that? And was it a good experience working with an agency?
Not through recruiter, it was directly.
It was direct. Okay, sorry. So it was actually a school, the group.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So they're doing their own recruitment. Cool. So what's your role now? What type of stuff are you doing?
So my role, I'm the group head of learning, innovation, and educational technology. We have two headquarters for the company. One is in Shanghai, one is in Singapore. I'm based in Singapore since January 2021. And I would say my main role is to support all the educational technology leaders that we have across our group with different research, insights, support, policies, and anything that I could help them with. We also have like a professional learning center that it's called Connected Ed. So I do a lot of publications on instructional strategies with technology.
Is that like a physical place in Singapore, or is it an online program?
It's an online site that we have for the entire group, where you can go and if you need some professional learning courses, you use, safeguarding course, or you use using technology for learning.
So are you actually recording the materials? Are you actually producing these courses, or are you getting them from elsewhere?
We're doing both. We also have LinkedIn Learning. So we create playlists of different, different courses for Microsoft Teams. So if you're new to Microsoft Teams, we create a playlist. So if you're beginner, intermediate, or advanced, you as an educator from the group, you can go and take these courses.
So what is LinkedIn Learning? I'm not familiar with that.
Is the professional learning module of LinkedIn. So as an organization, you can have courses and certificates within LinkedIn Learning.
Just internally for your company?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. I never heard of it. Cool. So how does it work? Because it's interesting. I've been looking at a lot of these groups of schools. There's a huge amount now based in Asia, Asia mostly, Middle East as well. These obviously you've got the big groups like Cognita and GEMS and Nord Anglia, and then you've got a lot of smaller groups like your one. And it's interesting how a lot of them have the model of, I don't know how you describe it, like the franchise model, working for these English private schools, have a relationship with them and use their name. So was that your first time working in this kind of group of schools? Did you always work in individual ones before?
Before working for the Colegio Roosevelt, the American School of Lima, I was actually working at Qatar Foundation Schools, where we had 10 schools within Qatar. So this is my second time I'm working in a central office.
Oh yeah, I forgot you were in Qatar. That was good. We were doing some stuff with Qatar Foundation still actually now, so it's great. I remember the first time we spoke actually when you were in Qatar.
Yep.
What about so like obviously you didn't set this thing up. You kind of inherited the job and you came in and now you're running the learning technology. How does it work? I'm curious. Like, does each school have control of its own technology, or do you try to do it centrally, or is it a combination?
I would say it's a combination of both. Normally, when you have these groups of schools, there's some independence that you give out to the schools. And also there's some things that are streamlined from the center for economy of scales or for just to have some standardizations of protocols or procedures. So I would say we are with a combination of both. Actually, we are in the middle of something called D3. It's called Dulwich Digital Difference. And it's the digital transformation journey that started before I joined the organization. But we're in the middle of it where we're trying to create a streamlined systems between all of our schools so we can get more clear insights talking about data for all the different systems that we can use. So what we have done recently is that all of our schools moved to a single tenant, and that was under Microsoft 365.
Interesting. I know some of your schools use Google and some use Microsoft. I don't know if you've looked at Google BigQuery, we've been looking at that a lot recently with schools, and it's really, if your school is using Google, you can get really good analytics of all the data on usage, on everything. And that's going to be big, I think. And I'm sure Microsoft has something similar.
Yes. Yeah. One of the challenges is that, Google, it's hard to be used in China. So that's one of the reasons.
Very true. I mean, it's interesting. Some schools do use it through a VPN. I don't know how they get away with it, but it's very few.
Yeah. You have to be careful with VPNs as well. So.
Yeah. Although it's interesting, I was chatting to one guy in Beijing, and he said that actually Google isn't actually illegal in China. Like, it's some gray area where you can actually do it, but I don't know. I think it's effectively illegal.
Yes. I think that's another podcast about what's legal and not there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's complicated. So you're like, I'm interested because I'm sure people might be interested in your role. People who are maybe were technology directors, maybe looking to do some kind of group role. Is it? I mean, I guess it's difficult to say what it's like because COVID is here and you haven't been able to leave. Like, normally, would you be out visiting the schools and things?
Yes. So normally pre-COVID, the person before me was actually visiting all the schools, meeting the teachers, meeting the EdTechs, meeting the information systems persons, and just working with the teachers within their context. Because even though we are part of a group, each of the colleges and the schools are unique in terms of demographics and programs.
Right. So in normal times, like, how often would you be flying out and visiting the schools? Would it be every month, or is it not that often?
I would say a week or two every 2 months.
Okay, interesting. And like, is this something you're missing, like being in a school, having the teachers and the students there?
You do miss it, but we have one school here in Singapore that I visit, so that has been nice. Yeah. The other way that I stay close to what's happening inside the classroom is, through the International Baccalaureate, the IBDP. I'm a principal examiner and also a curriculum developer. So that's one way that I try to keep, my center with what's happening inside the classroom.
Now, that's interesting. Somebody asked me about that recently. Like, how does someone go about becoming like an examiner or a curriculum developer? Is this what's the process? How would someone who's interested look at doing that?
So I started back in, I would say, 2007. And you start first, you have to be a teacher of that subject. You have to be a teacher after you completed all your trainings and your certificates. Then you have the option to apply to be an assistant examiner. So once you become an assistant examiner for many years, then the IB could promote you to a principal examiner. The principal examiner is the person who oversees or coordinates the assistant examiners worldwide.
Okay, Cool. And is that like is that a paid position? Do they give you a stipend for doing this, or is it just a purely volunteer position to do that?
They give you a very small stipend. I think it's more vocation, and also
to do it,
stay current. And at the same time, I think it has been a tremendous learning experience for me because, I was part of the group that developed Digital Society course in the DP, which is actually changing from ITGS. So it was good to be part of that process with many different thought leaders across the world.
Oh, that's cool. Anything else about the role? I'm interested. So you're doing learning technologies. Like, what type of things are you looking to do? Are you focusing on? We mentioned before about data. Are you looking at data on student information systems? Like, what do you think are the interesting things you're going to be working on?
So one of the things that we're going to start is the Launchpad, which is a portal, and also the LMS review process.
Yeah.
Our schools have been independently using different LMSs, and that's hard when you're trying to pull up some data to do some strategic decisions. So one of the things that we're doing is we are streamlining LMSs across the group, because that's also going to help, parents and students to see the same content in the same platform if they have kids across different sections of the schools or different schools per se.
Yeah. And what if you can say, like, what LMSs are you looking at? What's interesting to you now as a learning management system?
I don't think we are in that stage yet. No. We're actually looking at the requirements. And once we got the requirements, we're going to reach out to different vendors to see if they first match the requirements, then we engage in further conversations.
I guess you're looking for something that can integrate with Google and Microsoft as well as a kind of the fundamental systems that people need to work with.
Yes.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, that's fascinating. I want to talk a bit about Singapore because I was talking to you earlier, like, I'm looking to move to Asia at some point. We're actually going to Dubai. I haven't told you. I'm actually going to Dubai with a family for 2 months this year. And we might stay longer. We're going to come back for Christmas and see. I feel like a change of scene, and I've got a lot going on in the Middle East. So we were looking at places, and Dubai seems like the most family friendly and best transport connections. I can get to Asia, I can get to Europe, but after that, we're looking at Asia. How do you find it? I mean, like, I guess it'd be just good to hear a little flavor of what it's like to live there. I know you've got a child. What's expat life like that in a general way?
So I lived in China 10 years ago. I have visited Singapore as a tourist, and I really liked it when I was living in Qatar. But now that I'm living here, I can say that I really enjoy being an expat here. There's a sense of community between expats and a good openness from the locals. There's a mixture of cultures. You get restaurants from all over the world. You hear languages from all over the world in your apartments, on the streets, on, taking the trains. So it's something that I really enjoy. Second of all is the safetiness. It's super safe. It's very safe. I have friends that their kids just take, the local transportation, go to school, come back. Very easygoing. I would say that even driving, some people disagree. For me, it's super safe compared to all the other countries that I have lived in.
Do you drive? Do you drive, or do you just take public transport?
We drive.
Yeah. Okay. And is it easy to get around in the car? I always imagine it's super crowded, Singapore. Is it easy to get around?
I would say because we're in COVID, it's super easy to get around. You only get, peak hours where the traffic is really bad. But I don't know, whenever, the country really opens up and you get more tourists, you might get more crazy. But, my commute to my office is actually 2 minutes walking.
Okay, 2 minutes walking. Oh, that's fun. I guess you planned that. You found somewhere close to where you live, which is the way to do it. Yeah. And where do you work? I was going to look on Google Maps. You work in the center of Singapore, or if there is a center?
Yeah, there's like a downtown. It's called Novena, so I work there.
Novena. Okay, cool. What about living? Do most people? I guess some people listen to this might be looking to work there as a teacher or whatever. There's a lot of international school jobs in Singapore. Most of the time, I guess it's apartments. Do the schools organize it, and what are the apartments like there?
I would have to say from my own experience, because I'm not actually working at a school, I'm
Yep.
more working at a head office. But my understanding from friends that I have here that I worked with them in Qatar or China or even Peru, most of the schools provide you some housing allowance.
Yep.
And then whenever you arrive, they provide you 2 weeks of a service apartment. So you
Right.
get 2 weeks to actually find a place, and or sometimes you find a place online from before you get here, and then you move to these apartments. And most of the apartments have a pool, have a tennis court. It's very green here, so it's really easy. It's a very, I would say, a very automated country. Everything's through the phone. You need an
Yeah.
app for everything. So as long as you have phone and a lot of battery, you're good to go.
What about I was just talking to Justin Hardman, who lives in Hong Kong. He runs 21CL actually yesterday, and he was talking about how small the apartments are in Hong Kong. Is it similar in Singapore, or do you have a bit more space?
I think from friends who have lived there, they say it's bigger here. So spaces are bigger in Singapore. Yeah.
And what about family life? Like, I know there's a lot of expat. I mean, there's expat sport clubs and things like that. I mean, what do you? How have you met other parents, and what kind of things do you do in the weekends and stuff?
As you know, I'm from Ecuador, so I speak Spanish, and my husband is from Uruguay, and we speak Spanish everywhere. That's our first language. So, for example, we go to a restaurant or we go to a store and we start speaking Spanish, and then some other people, approach us and say, "Oh, you speak Spanish," and then we get along, and those are the friends that we have now. And they have children the same age as our daughter, so that has been really good.
Great. And what about the schools? I mean, obviously you only know the school your daughter goes to, but I mean, I know the Singapore American School. Actually, Chip Kimball, who's now, he was a director, now he's ISP. I met him last week, and that's a pretty phenomenal school. I think it's like 4,500 students. It's just crazy, but I know that's very regarded, and a lot of the other schools are good. Is that your experience, that the schools are very good, the international schools?
Yes, I will have to say yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I believe the local education system in Singapore is good as well. I mean, I haven't never worked with any schools from it, but just from what I've read, I think it's quite highly regarded.
Yes, they have a lot of requirements and exams. I would say that education in Singapore, whether that's local or independent, it's really good.
Yeah, I guess I've heard that as a criticism of the local system, but it is super focused on exams, like a lot of Asian countries, almost too much in terms of from us coming from a more Western environment. It seems like that. Cool. So what's the future for you? You think you're going to stay in Singapore long term, or like, I mean, I guess you're hoping for COVID to end like everyone, so you can travel around a little bit and see some things.
Yeah, we would love to go, to Indonesia or just Malaysia, where you can drive 4 hours and you are in the capital, Kuala Lumpur. But no, we are really happy where we are. I like sunshine, as you know. I'm from Guayaquil, from Ecuador, and I'm used to the sunshine and the heat, and I miss that a lot. And my daughter is having a great experience at her school. She's learning Mandarin. She speaks Spanish with us at home, and she also speaks English at school. So having that third language for her was very important for us.
And do you think she can learn Mandarin? Do you think it's realistic to learn it?
She picks up words a lot. She gets 1 hour of Mandarin a day. She understands the writing now. If we are at a shopping mall or anything, she can pick up words and say, "Hey, Mom, I think she's saying that she wants to go to the restroom," for example. I have no idea what they're talking about, but she does understand. And I think she's only 5. So that's the best age for her to get the third language.
Got it. Are you trying to learn Mandarin, or are you not even going for it, not even trying?
I honestly, I try, and when I lived in China, and I can get by of just buying stuff, but that's it. I mean, that's all I can talk.
I would love to learn that, but it's just such a commitment. It's a serious. I mean, you can get to a basic level, fairly easily, but then to actually speak it. I got a good friend, Dave Freeman, in Taiwan, and he grew up there and speaks really good Mandarin, and it just impresses people so much when they're out there. He even has the local accent and everything. It's really cool.
Well, you have to live also in a country that speaks Mandarin, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And but I guess Singapore's a mixture, isn't it? Do you get Cantonese speakers as well, or is it a mixture of languages, or is it mostly Mandarin?
I would say mostly Mandarin, but most of the communication from the government, everything's in English here.
Right.
Everything's in English. Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got a few ethnic groups. I know there's Malaysians or Malays and a lot of Indians, isn't there? And obviously Chinese. So it's a kind of real. There's a few kind of large ethnic groups in Singapore that make up the country.
Yes, yes. And you get a lot of expats, I would say, because of the location from New Zealand and Australia. We're so close to them, and you get a lot of expats from that region.
Is that the biggest group of expats you'd say, Australia and New Zealand?
I would say UK.
UK, really? There's always, former British colony, I guess. Maybe that's the connection. Yeah. Well, Daniela, really great to talk. I guess what time is it? It's 8 o'clock in the morning here. It's early afternoon for you, I guess. Just 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
2:30 p.m.
2:30. Okay, cool. So still at work. So great to talk. And let's do another catch up again in a year or so and see what I'm sure you'll still be in Singapore, but we can see what your role has developed into.
Absolutely. I mean, this podcast really helped me reflect on my journey. And I'm really thankful for that. Thank you, Dan, for inviting me over again.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Thank you very much, Danielle.
Thanks. Bye.